Welcome back to Close Up. The Republican primary for Congress in New Hampshire's 1st District took a turn when longtime Manchester Alderman Joe Kelly Levasseur decided to join the fray on the last day of the filing period in June. Levasseur brings an outspoken pro-Trump viewpoint to the race and a record of winning citywide races as a Republican in heavily Democratic Manchester. Alderman Levasseur is our guest this morning on Close Up. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So I've seen some of your signs out and about. You know, it's got you on there, and then it says Trump or bust on some of these on the bottom. Probably going to work great in the primary. I'm curious, if you become the nominee, there are a lot of Republicans out there, a lot of right-leaning independent voters who want a Republican, but they might not want somebody so closely associated with Trump. So how are you going to make that pivot if you win?
Because it's Trump or bust, or we're going to bust. The country needs Trump back in office. He needs allies, and he needs Trump allies. People that aren't going to go down there and with weak knees and sell him out or not go with his policies, and his policies are the reason why I'm a Trump ally. He did a great job as president. He did a great job for the country. And if you ask yourself a simple question, are you better off today than you are 4 years ago? The question is easy to answer. You are not better off than you 4 years ago. And as far as Trump or bust, and whether or not, I mean, I have to look, I guess, in the middle where the independents are. If anybody says, like, well, he's too far over to the right or he's too MAGA, look at my opponent. If I win the primary, the invisible congressman, Mr. Pappas. If I have to go to the middle, it's probably an inch. How far does he have to get to go to the middle? He's on Pluto. That's how far away he is. He is so far left for him to come to the middle. So I don't want to hear the argument that, you know, independents or right-leaning Republicans don't want a guy who's a Trump ally. What they need to say to themselves is, do we want to go back down to Washington and have to deal with impeachments for the next 4 years? Because that's what Pappas did. He went after a man, they went after him personally, they attacked him, and they just tried to impeach him, sully him, ruin his reputation. And now you see what happens when you interfere in these elections the way that they did, and you see what your country's turned into. So far left that you don't even recognize it anymore. So I'm proud to say I'm a Trump ally. I don't have a problem with Trump or bust. It's not a slogan. Trump or bust is not a slogan. It's a fact. If we don't get the presidency, everything else is really nothing. We need the presidency. We've seen what happened with Biden with the presidency, and we have a Republican Congress and a pretty center Senate. And with the presidency, they just go off with these executive orders and they do whatever they want. You know, we're going to get rid of this executive order about college loans. Infuriating what he's done, what they have done with the presidency.
Well, let's talk about executive power really quick. There, you know, you're an attorney, and that recent Supreme Court decision basically said that if it's an official act, there is, you know, very broad immunity now for the executive office. You know, let's take out the Trump and the Biden aspect of this. Just from the constitutional aspect, do you think the Congress needs to do more now to draw some lines, legal lines, about what is an official and what is an unofficial act for the executive?
Well, the Chevron decision was the biggest decision of all the decisions that just came down. When you saw that now with Title IX, when Biden tried to water it down so men could go into women's sports, the courts have stepped in and said no. Those federal agencies had all the power because the elected officials got lazy and they didn't want to do the real work. Now, when you have somebody going to Congress, you're going to have to expect them to actually do the real work. When they put a policy together, you can look at a regulation, but the real power is in the rules. Like, you know, in Manchester, we have zoning regulations, but the rules are really what get you. And so they figured out how to get around all of these regulations and the powers that Congress has with all these federal regulations. Chevron is the biggest decision that came out of Supreme Court. It levels the playing field for all the businesses in this country that were getting hurt by these things, and maybe we'll slow down some of the NGO power that has really accumulated in this country.
But does the Congress need to restrain the executive power, do you think?
Yeah, I do. I think that that's our job. I mean, you know, we're three branches, and the powers are our separation of powers, and I think Congress has failed to do that, hold the presidential power in check. But, yeah, and Biden has been off the roof with his executive authority. It's been terrible for what he's done to this country.
Back to the race here in CD1. Does the race that you're running, does the race at large change at all with the switch to Harris at the top of the Democratic ticket?
Yeah, I think it would have been easier, of course, with Biden because a lot of people were not excited and they were not going to come out to vote. Harris has energized the base for now. She's getting her bump that everyone expects to get. But as you see more of her record, even I didn't realize how liberal she was. And they're so nervous about it, they're scrubbing the internet. I mean, she's the border czar, whether you want to hear about it, they're trying to pretend she's not the border czar. And one of the biggest issues that I hear as I go around the state and around my district is the border. The border is one of the most important issues. She was put in charge of the border. She did absolutely nothing. And the more they find out about her, I mean, she came to New Hampshire, she came in a primary, she got less than 1%. They didn't fall for her shtick in the 2020 primary. They're not going to fall for it now. I really think it's going to help us. It's just going to have to get through it, get the messaging out. And the Democrats played a nice slick game in the convention. They knew they were going to switch Biden out, but they let the Republicans believe he was going to be the candidate. So they took away that opportunity to really expose Kamala Harris for what she is, a left-wing liberal, even more than Biden is, which is pretty hard to believe.
You mentioned border security, obviously a top issue, not just for Republicans, but the electorate more broadly. You know, clearly securing the border is a top issue for Republicans, but what is the best way to dissuade people from coming here illegally in the first place?
Well, I think obviously finishing the wall would really help. I think what the country, when President Trump has said he's going to deport 10 million illegals, he needs to start with the criminals, the people who have gotten here. Any illegal that has created a crime, does any crime in this country. I don't care what it is. We have, you know, illegals with DWIs. We have assaults, rapes, all kinds of crimes in this country. Those people need to go first, and we need to really, really toughen up our laws on that issue alone. Obviously, if you stop giving out all kinds of free stuff, that would certainly help. But stemming the tide, really, you know, Trump had stopped this crisis that he inherited, and he had gotten those numbers down to the lowest they've ever been. And he was doing a really good job. He had worked with Mexico. He had worked with other countries to help them be able to help their own people. And then Biden, just with an executive order, stops all of Trump's progress in getting that border wall done. If he had finished the border wall and kept Trump's policies in place, we wouldn't be where we are now. And I'll tell you, 10 million people came into our country. You wonder why you have a housing shortage. Where do you think they're living? You know, 6 of them will get an apartment. They're going to work. They're going to be able to afford an expensive apartment, but there's 6 of them splitting the rent. That's hurting Americans when it comes to housing. Food prices have gone up. Well, you have 10 million people come in over the border over the 3 years. Of course, prices are going up. They're using more of our resources. You need to stem this. You need to stop this dead in the tracks. And if Kamala Harris gets in there, we are not going to stop what we have now. They're going to keep coming and keep coming.
What about the issue of abortion? Obviously, this is a top issue for a lot of voters. Where do you stand on this? And do you agree with the Republican platform now that is new, saying it's just a state issue?
I do. You know, the Supreme Court's not going to be thrilled with Congress coming in and then trying to change laws and, you know, change the whole structure that they've put in place. It's a state issue, so it's not really a congressional issue at all. It is a yeah, I believe it should stay where it is with the states, and that should stay with the states. It's pretty simple. I really can't go into really much more than that.
And yet twice in the last decade, Republicans in Congress, specifically the Congress, have passed restrictions on abortion, a 20-week ban. What if that comes before you? How are you voting on it as someone who's pro-life?
I am very pro-life, but I am not going to take it away from the states. They fought too hard and too long to get it there. The Supreme Court ruled that it's not a federal issue. It's not in the Constitution. It's a state issue, and I'm going to leave it there.
The issue of homelessness, obviously, is a longtime alderman in Manchester. You've been working on this a long time. Does Congress have a role at all in helping municipalities deal with an issue that can get beyond their control sometimes?
Well, I want to say thank you to Joyce Craig as the mayor of Manchester. She was so terribly awful as the mayor of Manchester that she turned the city red for the first time since 1998. Her lack of leadership on homelessness in Manchester. So we have 7 elected Republicans and a Republican mayor. Since 1998, those boards have been controlled by Democrats. Because Joyce was so bad as mayor, the city of Manchester went red. I'm actually the first Republican alderman chairman since 1998. Does the federal government have a play in this? You know, we have 4 Democrat congressmen. What did they do for homelessness in Manchester? Nothing. They could have used those trillions of dollars they spent to come in and get us some low-income housing, affordable housing like we have. We have like 5 or 6 buildings in this city. Not one building has been built in those 4 years. for all of our homeless people in this country. Gavin Newsom is now, all of a sudden, he's become like, he's just made an order. They're getting rid of all their encampments. Now that we have a Republican-controlled city alderman board, we have made changes in the last 4 weeks that have already made Manchester look cleaner and much safer. We are cleaning up our homeless camps, but you still have to figure out what you're going to do and where you're going to put them. So yes, the federal government, that'll be one of the biggest issues that I will fight for when I get down to Congress. Housing, low-income affordable housing for veterans and seniors, and we have to work on our energy issues here in the state.
All right, Alderman Levasseur, thanks for joining us on Close Up. We'll see you out there on the trail.
Trump or bust. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
We'll be right back with our one-on-one interview with Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Stay with us.